Hi, students, and welcome to our history course. I just want to have a quick little video right now that just talks about why we study history. Why do we even study it at all? Why does this question matter? And the answers that might surprise you. You may have a completely different idea about why you're studying history than what I'm about to tell you. So let's go ahead and jump right in. First of all, let me tell you some wrong reasons to study history. We don't study history to learn moral lessons. Even though we might learn some lessons, there might be some things we can learn from that. That's not the purpose of studying history. So don't think that you're going to get some kind of handbook for how to live your life or for how to shape policy on a national level. We certainly can use that as a guide, but that's not the purpose. We certainly don't do it to become more patriotic. Or what we call great man history. That might be a byproduct. We're certainly going to talk about some great things about our country and learn some to appreciate many of the people and institutions that we have in the United States today. We also don't learn it to become less patriotic, and we will do some critical history. We will talk about some of the failures and some of the really terrible things that have happened through history. But if I teach you history with a purpose of one or the other of these things, if I bring my political opinions, whatever they might be, into the classroom, I'm doing you a great disservice, and I'm not teaching you the truth. I'm not teaching you what happened, and you're going to find that the truth is a little more complex than that. All of these, while somewhat useful, give you as a learner a dead or a final version of history that's not only inaccurate, but it's why history is boring for some people, is because you think, hey, this is what was written down, so this is what happened, and there's no other interpretation for that. And that's not why we study history. So let me just give you a little phrase here from William Faulkner, a famous American author. The past is never dead. It's not even past. Think about that. The things that happen in our past constantly reflect back onto our future. And so many of the conflicts that have happened in the past have not been resolved. And you see this in the news all the time. You see themes that just continually resurface. And so to say that the past is in the past, it happened and it's done, is problematic. Okay, so there are 5 or 6 skills that I'm going to teach you throughout this year. And the first one is this idea of inquiry. We want to come up with a series of questions. We want to be sometimes more interested in the questions than we are in the answers. And that can be really frustrating, especially for those of you who are math geniuses who really like having very straightforward answers. Here's the formula. I plug the formula in and I always get the right answer. History is a little more messy than that. We don't always have a right answer, but we do have some important skills that we learn. We learn how to think as historians, and that will really help us in solving problems that don't have an easy answer all the time. Sam Weinberg, who is a famous educator and historian, he writes a lot about teaching history in the school system, says facts are mastered by engaging students in historical questions that spark their curiosity and make them passionate about seeking answers. And that's what I really want to do this year. I really want to make you interested in the questions so that you want to find the answers rather than me just feeding information to you. Sourcing is another important skill we're going to learn this year. When you have a source, whether it's a speech, a piece of writing, a video, anything that is saying something, you need to ask yourself, what is it doing? Not what is it saying, but what is it doing? Who's speaking? Who is the audience they're speaking to? When and where are they speaking? What's the purpose? What is the speaker trying to get you to do or to get you to feel? By asking these questions, you're not just taking a source at face value, you're putting it through a critical filter that will help you determine the value of the source that you're reading. For historians, Sam Weinberg again says, for historians, the act of reading is not about gathering lifeless information to repeat on a test, but engaging a human source in a spirited conversation. These sources you're going to read were written by people who had opinions, people who made mistakes, people who had a certain set of skills, a certain set of strengths and weaknesses, and they are saying something. They are trying to express a certain point of view. And so you are going to engage with these people, even though they are dead. You're going to engage with these people in a conversation rather than just reading this blank, lifeless document. Contextualization means putting something within the proper time, place, climate, and audience. So if you tell me that your friend said this certain thing about you, I'm probably going to ask you some questions. Okay, well, and maybe it felt like it was a negative thing. Okay, well, when did they say it? Who were they with? Maybe they were with a group of people that they didn't, feel as comfortable with. There's a whole lot of questions that you want to ask to put that into the right context. You've probably heard this saying before. Oh, they've took me out of context, right? So contextualization is putting that source or that fact back in its proper place so that we can analyze the bigger picture of what was going on when this thing happened or this person said this thing. Sam Weinberg again says the study of history is supposed to teach us to spurn sloganeering. Sloganeering is sort of another term for political rhetoric or a political argument. So we spurn it, meaning we don't give in to that. We should avoid being caught up in political arguments. We're going to have political arguments, but we should avoid being caught up in those things. We should tolerate complexity and cherish nuance. People are messy. People are complex. The world is a complex place. And especially as teenagers, it's very hard to wrap your brain around that. You still have a very right and wrong sort of opinion about events and facts. And you need to learn how to think about things in a more complex way so that you can solve complex problems. Corroboration simply means can a claim be backed up by other witnesses or evidence? If you hear a news story or if you read something on the internet or if you hear a speech from a politician that says one thing, are you finding any evidence that can back up that thing? Okay, if there's several sources saying that thing, there's a lot more likelihood, not necessarily a guarantee, but there's a lot more likelihood that that thing is more or less accurate. Where if there's no other evidence or witnesses that can back that up, it's probably not accurate. And then looking at the world through multiple perspectives. Okay, you want to look at, I have been in situations where something happened and I have described what happened later from my point of view. It was completely different from a point of view of someone else. Was I lying? Were they lying? No, they just saw it through a completely different perspective than I did. And it's important to be able to look at those things, take all the information you have and come to a tentative or not a final conclusion, but a conclusion based on evidence, not on emotion or opinion. Finally, President Woodrow Wilson said that the study of history is supposed to endow us with the invaluable mental power, which we call judgment. And really, like I say, history teaches us how to think. History teaches us wisdom in addition to skills. It teaches us truly how to analyze things, how to weigh information, and how to make informed decisions as citizens, as family members, as friends, as people in the world in a responsible way. So I hope you have a great time this year and that you find value in these things that we're going to be studying. Thank you.